we'd like to know about some of your history, like how you became a Vite contributor as well.
So going back to the plugins, we talked about plugins a little bit. It seems like there's a plugin for absolutely everything with Vite. What's on the roadmap for Vite? What's exciting coming up?
Now we are like 12 million npm weekly downloads. I think 1 month away to be half of the downloads of Webpack.
I have heard like Vite is mostly used in like dev server as a dev server or during development environment.
What resources should someone that wants to learn more about Vite? I know there's also Vite test, right? So it's a whole testing framework built around Vite, right? So if someone's wanting to learn more about this,
and if you're more from the Angular world, like you will use Vite a lot more in the future.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We already do for the dev server, so I'm looking forward to more Vite goodness.
What is Vite?
Okay, yeah. Maybe we should have started there.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of This is Tech Talks. And this is episode 14, and we have an amazing guest, Matias, with us. You may know him as a cat, of course, on Twitter and all the social media. He's also on Twitter is Patrick Dev. That's what his handle is. And then we have our co-host today, Sonu and Jay, joining us. Hey, Jay, hey, Sonu, how are you doing?
Great.
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. So I'm about to end my day, probably Matthias as well. We are in Europe, so we are probably in the same time zone. But you both looks like you just started your day.
Yeah.
Yeah, my days. It's 8:30 a.m. here, so this is the first thing I'm doing today.
Starting with Pete.
Yeah, always.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. So before we move ahead with question, Nata, so would you like to introduce yourself, like what you have been doing so far and how you started your career? We'd like to know about some of your history, like how you became a Vite contributor as well. So.
Yeah, I have been doing like programming for like 20 years, 25, I don't know. A long time. And I did some open source at like a long time ago, like in the C++ at that time. And for a long time, I was involved in closed source, doing like a engine for the web to do graphics. And that was my introduction to the web. And we migrated a lot of things that were done in the server to like the client. And it was just amazing. And I fall in love with the web there. And I had like some years working in a big company doing some like culture work about like teaching the employees. And I started using in that company open source as a tool to be able to improve the skills of the developers. Like we started like an open source club where we will meet weekly and I don't know, like try to push ourselves to do PRs and why, like in a good way, no? Like it's not like doing spam PRs. Actually, like we try to avoid like, but it was really interesting. And because of that, I started to get again in the rhythm and starting to contribute in some projects related to Vue first, then VitePress. And I had like 4 projects that I said like, oh, this look nice. Like we did layouted that was like a grid generator, and we were using Vite before Vite 2. And this was extremely unstable because like Evan was pushing like 100 commits per day, fixing a lot of things. But it was like there was a lot of opportunities to get involved at that time. And so like I put my eyes on Vite and started to first contribute like documentation and stuff as usual, no? Like, as you do when you start. And also there was Vite 2. One of the main things was that now you could write plugins that were compatible with Rollup, and they will work in Vite during build and dev. And there was a lot of Rollup official plugins, like a long list. And I was testing all of them and reporting what were the compatibility issues. And not even doing the PR, because like as soon as I sent the issue, Evan was like closing it. Like, I didn't have even time to look at the code at that point. But it was good, and this is how I got involved. And because I like a lot to do community work also, and like talk with people, and like not only coding, we proposed it to Evan to create a Discord, because at that point it didn't exist. It was just a channel in the Vue LAN Discord. And so like we created that. Like Evan made me admin together with Anthony Fu and like a few other folks, and we started there, building together. And once Evan finishes V2, and this was around 3 years ago. Like the project is about to, like the first commit of Vite is about to be 4 years ago, just for reference. And like V2 was like a massive release. And then after that massive sprint that Evan did, he needed to refocus on Vue, because Vue is kind of a big project too. And so like he decided to create a team to do like daily maintenance of the project. And obviously like he remained involved. We had like be monthly meetings where we'll discuss, like trying to analyze all the trade-off of each PR, and get to that meeting and try to get as much as possible done there. And yeah, like I was one of the, like, again, together with Anthony Fu, Underfin, that was around that time, that now is working on Roll Down, Underfin. So like we were like the first people that were part of the official Vite team. And from then on, like as part of the work that I was doing, I started to also get involved a lot into the building the team, not only kind of. So as soon as we saw that contributors were getting more involved, we will like talk with them and trying to, if they were interested, of course, that you cannot push anyone to do anything in open source. But Vite is a very interesting project and allows you to talk to so many of the maintainers of every framework. So there is a lot of incentive to be around. You get PR from all your heroes, in a daily basis, and you see like, wow, yes, merge. So like it's really, really nice. And from then on, I decided that I will quit my job, because this was too good to let pass. I was already thinking on like spending maybe like a year or something like that, just like doing full-time Vite, and then we see, because I knew that there will be like doors open, or even like, to be honest, like I was in very good relationship and I could get back to that company. But at that point, then Eric Simmons, that is the CEO of Stackblitz, that I imagine that that they do like web containers, allow you to run Node in the browser. So like we were using a lot web containers and Stackblitz to back reproductions, inner documentation, like all the Vite ecosystem is using them. And for them, Vite was very good, because they wanted to have like this experience of like you click and you have like a dev server instantly that you can play with. And so far they did the technology, but they did that, and then npm install was installing half of npm to be able to start the project. And so if Vite didn't appear, Eric always said that they will have to build something like Vite. So because there was so much alignment, we discussed it, and like Stackblitz ended up hiring me full time to work on Vite. And this happened 2 years ago, and from then on, like I had then a ton of time and like security to be able to properly put all my mind into Vite. And we were lucky, because Vite grows so much that then other people, like Anthony Fu worked for Naxlab, Bjorn worked for Astro. So like there, we have like a lot of people in the team that has time in their hands to do it properly.
Yeah, that's amazing. Such a cool story. I remember on Twitter, when I don't know who announced it, you would have tweeted it as well, right? But when you were like, oh, like I got hired on, at Stackblitz, and I'm going to work on, they're hired on to work on Vite. I was like, that is awesome. That is so sweet to see a company. I mean, obviously Stackblitz is super supportive of open source, right? So that's not a surprise at all. But like, it was just really awesome to see that kind of like get paid back into the community for a tool that was years ago now. Now look at the usage of Vite, right? So having the backing of a company like Stackboats is huge for a tool that's like integrated like literally everywhere.
Yeah, and at that point it was a big bet, because like it wasn't the Vite as it was today. Like there,
Exactly.
like now we are like 12 million npm weekly downloads. Like I just checked it before entering the. We are like, I think 1 month away to be half of the downloads of Webpack, just to be a reference of like how much Vite has grown in this, like,
Yeah.
and it was like completely different time. And I like, I am really grateful that Stagway did that, and I'm very grateful that other companies also do the same. Like you have like Netlify hiring Ryan Carniato, you have like Versal hiring a lot of people, like Rich Harris from Svelte and others from the React team, and there are like several other companies doing that, and it is extremely, like, I think it's a very good way for the company, and for the open source project is amazing, because you have like stability, and that is something that is so hard to get like through sponsorships or things like that. It's very, very hard to ramp up in, like, if you go to GitHub sponsor, for example.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for the folks who don't know about Rolldown, so it's like official port of Rollup in Rust, right? Rewritten in Rust. That's the project name. Good.
Yeah.
I'll just.
Yeah. So like Evan, okay, after doing Vite and Vue, now wants to do like the third big project, and yeah, like he's leading another team. This is independent from Vite, but like we have like a very close relationship. But the idea is like we are extremely happy with Rollup, to be honest. Like Vite is where it is because Rollup is so awesome. Like Vite choose a tool that it was in JS, and during build is not the fastest thing in the earth. But it was very mature. It has an amazing ecosystem of plugins. The Rollup plugin API is like one of the best things in that exist, and it really like spawned like so many innovation. And actually, like the idea of Vite is that during dev is where you care that it is as fast as possible, because this is where you spend most of your time. And if CI doing the build is going to take a little bit more time, like it's a trade-off that we accept it. But as things progress, it like Lucas, that is like the main maintainer, like Rollup was created by Rich Harris, like from Svelte, but then Lucas, I don't know how to pronounce the surname, but like he took over and like has been maintaining it so far. It's like just like incredible job he has done, and he knew that like for Vite to continue using Rollup, like there was a need to like speed it up, because as Vite gets used in enterprise project, that they start to send you issues saying like, I have 10,000 modules, like, and this is not fast for me. And like, why you have 10,000 modules? Like, can you break it like at least in like some packages, like what do you expect the build tool to do? But there are like ways to actually make it fast, like with like native languages, the like other build tools are doing. So Rollup, Lucas is starting to go in an incremental route to speed up Rollup. For example, like in the last mayor, Lucas already starting to do like use SWC for parsing, and that like was a very big boost. But at the same time, is like that is like a safe route, but there is another way that is like, let's do a rewrite. That is a lot riskier route, because you could do a rewrite and after 1 year, 2 years of work end up with nothing. But if it goes well, then it is incredible. Like you could really like have the full thing in Rust. So this is the bet that Evan is doing now with Rolldown, that is going to be like a compatible like port to Rust of Rollup. And from the Vite point of view is very interesting, because like we have the incremental path to speed up Rollup, and we have the rewrite part at the same time, and that is the safest bet with the Vite hat. Like this is like awesome that there are two teams doing this. So like probably what is going to happen is that during the next year, we are going to keep getting improvement from everything that Rollup is doing. And then at one point, roll down will be ready and we will switch. And roll down has a little bit bigger scope than rollup, because the idea is to replace both rollup and ES build. Vite uses like two different tools below. Like one is rollup, and that is like with all the ecosystem, mature, like big plugin flexibility. And the other one is ES build. That is like writing in Go. It goes like fast as hell, but it's not flexible. And we use like where we need the speed, we use ES build. And where we need flexibility, we use rollup. But having two different tools, there is a lot of little cuts here and there, because like you get reports to two different tools, and you have to like balance that. So if roll down managed to get like compatibility and we can replace both tools with roll down, it will heavily simplify Vite. It will speed up build time. We will also use it during dev instead of ES build. Pre-bundling will be done with roll down, so it will be closer dev and build. That is something that is very important for us to like trying to get your environment as close as possible as your production environment. So yeah, it is like, it looks like a very good place to go. And yeah, and something important is that like if you see the last VidConf talk, that is this conference that we do once a year, organized by StackGrid too. So we do this conference, and Lucas did a talk about rollup, and there he told about like what his opinion, and he even said like in a slide that if roll down managed to like get all the compatibility that is promising, like he's okay like even naming it like rollup 6, let's say, and actually helping there, because like again, like the idea is kind of the same, but like two different paths to do the speed up of rollup.
So that's nice to hear. So yeah, we discussed about roll up and roll down. So let's talk about Vite. What is Vite?
Okay, yeah. Maybe we should have started there. Yeah. So like we said that Evan Yu, that is the creator of Vue, he also like created Vue CLI that was using Webpack. Webpack is a build tool to build your application that I imagine most of the people that hear this will have used before. And Vue CLI worked for the Vue community, but it was like quite heavy, and it was slow also. And so, but he had a lot of experience building that tool. And Webpack, to be honest, it's amazing what that the team did and keep doing, because they keep maintaining it. But it was done at a time where a lot of the common patterns that we have now, like for example, TypeScript was not the king. Like there was like Flow and TypeScript, and like now it is kind of like, will you use Flow or TypeScript? Like that is not a discussion we have, you know. And there are a lot of these kind of things that with time, like as a community, the web community like evolve it into saying, okay, these are the patterns that we are going to go with now. And Webpack needed then to have like a ton of flexibility that Vite could, when Evan starting to build Vite, say, okay, actually, like we are going to do an opinionated tool, like that is going to be based on these common patterns that everybody use, so we can be simpler. And that helped it a lot in adoption, because instead of like having like a manual like this to configure Webpack, you could just like out of the box, Vite actually did what was the most like common path. So for a lot of people, like without even a config file, you have like TypeScript support and post CSS support and a lot of things that now it feels natural. But when Vite appeared, it was like really like, wow. There were other teams, and again, they keep working, like Parcel, like they push it a lot, this idea of having no config, like out of the box experience. So like Vite took like the best thing from several tools to build itself. And Vite like at that point, Evan actually like created Vite, going away from the way that Webpack was working, that normally these tools during dev, they will start, bundle your application, send that to the browser, like imagine like a single bundle. And from then on every change, it will be hot module replacement, but like directly like modifying that big bundle, because it like the bundle was done in a format that allowed them to like change things. And this worked well, but it meant that when you start the dev server, you have to wait, because you had to bundle the application before you send the index HTML with the JavaScript and everything. And the main idea of Vite was that, hey, now we have ESM supported in browsers. We can, instead of doing that, what if we do, let's say, a smart static server that, imagine like you start like in your folder, kind of a static server, but when the browser requests something that is not JS, for example, a .view file or a JSX, then this server is not going to just return the file to the browser, but is going to process it using ESBuild and other tools that are extremely fast. And actually, for example, if it is a TypeScript type file, it will strip the types quickly and then return something that the browser can consume. So you can think of Vite as that, like just a glorified static server that like knows how to actually serve things in a way that the browser can consume. And this worked like very, very well. And especially for HMR, for example, it really scaled well as the application grow, because once you have the application loaded, it's using the module imports like the normal thing from the browser. Like the browser is taking care of so much complexity that before was built into the tool. And then when you change a module, it's like you just send the module and like just like we add a little query, like a T at the end, which a number that is kind of like the browser then will like load a new module, import a new module, and then it's heavily simplified like a lot of things. And yeah, that really clicked with a lot of people, because they were used to like waiting, and then like when they started using Vite, like you start Vite and it's so fast, like it is like started in like 80 milliseconds, but it's so fast because it's doing nothing. So like that is that's why it's so fast, because it's basically like starting an ATP server, just that. And then once the browser start to request, then it's kind of like starting to process each of the files, and like at one point you will have like the whole application loaded in the browser.
Yeah.
Thanks for going through the HMR. I mean, it was really interesting because that's the main use case, if I can see, right? I mean, old tools were slow, even if you do HMR. I mean, in Angular, of course, Jay knows, or Sonu, so even Sonu knows. So we still use Webpack. I mean, we are moving to Vite, but HMR was a big issue. I mean, if you think about a production app, you have to bit. I mean, you cannot do anything for like probably a minute. You just need to build your application, go make a coffee, and come back, and then probably your server is started. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
thanks to be that. It's
we
faster. So
collaborated in reducing the coffee consumption.
Yes. Yeah.
coffee companies, right? Cool. So Jay, Sonu, you have any follow-up question?
Yeah, actually, so we're talking about modules and all that, right? So maybe we can dive a little bit more about, hot modules, and how that improves the development experience and all of that. So maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So the way that Vite processes each file is like when there is, imagine this, like, so once you have all the module graph in the browser that you have been loading all these files, and that can be like a .view or whatever kind of file, and Vite on the other side has a in-memory module graph, like modeling exactly the same, like with cached for all the transform, and with like information about what is importing by what. And then we have like a watcher that is watching all the directory, and once there is a change in a file, then that watcher will say like, hey, like this file changed it, and then we will go to that module graph and say like, okay, this file changed it, we have like a propagation algorithm that will check what needs to be updated. And for that, there is a HMR API that lets like framework authors, this is not something that a final user will do, but framework authors will create their plugins with like actually setting boundaries and saying like, hey, if you have like a, for example, like a Vue component or an Angular component, and you have a change that is like changing some color, like, or some like text, you can say like, this is the boundary. Like if you change this text, it needs to only update until here. Like the rest of the application can stay exactly the same. And you can decide to keep a state, or you can decide if you need to reload the state. And so like with this API, like we have support for like all the frameworks that you can think of, like even Angular now, as you mentioned. And yeah, like for final users, it is about of like framework support obviously is not out of the box because it's framework agnostic Vite, but it's just about installing one plugin, like plugin Vite plugin as well, Vite plugin, like there is going to be a big plugin Angular, it seems at one point. Like for now, it's like the whole thing. And the idea is that once you have that, it's like you teach Vite how to deal with these like files. And to be honest, like you probably are not even going to do that because Vite is a tool to build meta frameworks. Like our users, a lot of the time, are not final users, but are the creators, the maintainers of SvelteKit, of Nux, of like Analog from the Angular community, and like all these framework, like Remix, for example, or Redwood, or like all this framework. When someone is like at this point wants to create something, like to build an application, or they choose a framework, or possibly they will create a framework while doing their work. So normally it's a lot more cost effective to just say like, I will not create my own framework, I will use one. So you choose Remix, you choose Analog, you choose like, or Angular, or like whatever you feel, and then it is about just about using that framework. You don't even configure the plugin because everything is configured for you.
Makes sense.
It does. I'm just wondering, like, do you have to work a lot with AST to figure out the exact changes in the graph?
We try to avoid working at the AST level because it is like slow, at least in the JS land that we are. Like once you move to Rust or like this native tooling, then you can do a lot more of that. So to be honest, a lot of issues in Vite that we closed during time was because we did some regex. Like we cheated, but that was a price to pay for actually, like at one point, yeah, like if there will be, for example, like very good example is like the define feature. The define feature in Vite actually lets you say like, okay, these particular like variables, or like keywords, let's say, replace them by this other thing, and this like should work at the keyboard level, like it shouldn't replace something inside a string, for example, or inside a command. This is not the idea. Like it should respect where like proper keywords. And we had that done using regex, and there were like so many cuts, like, and the regex was like this, because it was like, yes, like you have to replace this, but first remove all the comments, and you can never do it right if you don't parse for real, if you don't do a proper AST. So at one point, like I think it was like in Vite 4, we move it from using regex to using the define feature of ESBuild. So like when you use define, all your files will go through ESBuild that will do a proper AST, like use that define feature and then continue working. And yeah, that completely eliminated like a whole category of bugs raised that feature. But for us, like we were like we accept that kind of trade-off, let's say, when it makes sense.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So going back to the plugins, we talked about plugins a little bit. It seems like there's a plugin for absolutely everything with Vite, right? Like, how big's the plugin ecosystem like, and what's it like to build a plugin? Like, do people need to know the internals of Vite, or what's that process like?
No, like this is why I think that Vite worked so well. Like the rollup API, that how it worked, it's very simple at its core. It has a lot of hooks that you can later use, but like as its core, a plugin is just an object that has a name, and you define certain hooks. Like the three main one are like resolve ID. This let you, when you see an identifier like a path in your file system or like a virtual file, like there, it's very common that in a meta framework you will say like, give me this m variable from svelkit env, or like some like thing that doesn't exist for real, that if you give that to rollup as is, like rollup will explode saying to you like, hey, this path, this is not a file. Like, I don't know what you're trying to do, but this is not a file. But like we have this concept of virtual models, and like when you have these kind of things, like you can resolve these IDs and say like, hey, yeah, no, I take care of this, like don't worry, this is not a file path, this is something that is mine. And you can then modify how that specifier works, and then you have a load hook that is, once the ID is resolved, you need to load from somewhere. Normally it is the file system, but if you're loading a virtual model, then you're going to invent something on the fly, for example, or loading it from a database, or like whatever you want to do there. These are like async hooks. Like you could even like hit like, I don't know, service online or something. You shouldn't. But and then you have the last, like most common hook is a transform hook. That is it. This is once you load the code, you get an opportunity to transform it. So this is where you are going to, for example, maybe process view into JS, or like, do whatever transformation you need, strip the types, for example, in TypeScript. So only with these three hooks, like resolve ID, load, and transform, you can do so much. It's like a very like composable and flexible thing. And as you said, like there is plugin for everything, and there is like a lot. It is a way in which frameworks can share a lot. For example, like Vite plugin PWA to give support of PWA. It works with all the frameworks, and you have like tons of little plugins, like Party Town, for example, like to be able to like load like these kind of scripts in a worker inside instead of in the main threads. You will look for it and say like, if you use Vite, you can use the Vite plugin Party Town. And yeah, we were lucky also that Anthony Fu exists, because like we should do a shout out to him, because he created like half, I think, I don't know if the package is in GitHub at this point already, because he is very prolific, and he was one of the early like adopters of Vite, and he was creating tons of plugin. Then later on, like he also have so many projects that actually is more as like is Anthony Fu and the community behind him, because like you really need once you manage 100 project or something like that, you really, part of the game is actually seeing how to get maintainers for all the projects, so all the projects can continue. But he's doing a fantastic job in that too. Like Vites, for example, was started by Anthony Fu too, like just to give an example.
I think half of the ecosystem is thankful for Anthony Fu. Believe me, whenever I have some discussion with someone related to open source, of course, like this is one name which always pops up.
Yeah, we are lucky to have this kind of like developers working with us. I also like, if we want to shout out, like there are some people in the Vite team that are like, I cannot name everyone, but like Safi Red, for example, and Jorn, that like they have been doing tons of like daily maintenance of the project. Like it's just incredible to be working together with like these kind of people.
Yeah, no doubt. What's on the roadmap for Vite? What's exciting coming up? I think we talked a little bit about it at the
Yeah.
start. But...
So like one of the big things is roll down, but to be honest, that will take time. It's not something again like doing this kind of work takes a lot of time. So maybe before the end of the year we could get some opt-in for people to start to try it out. For example, like one of the first milestone there is that they want to be able to replace the pre-bundling. This is something that we do in Vite, that each of your dependencies, imagine if you have Lodash and you have like 1,000 little files, utilities modules, and if you give that to the browser, your browser is going to take some time to load like 1,000 files. So what we do is that before we give that to the browser, we pre-bundle it with AS build into like a single file. So each dependency that you load is a single file. So that reduces a lot of like files, and this is cache. So like you only like fill it in cold start. It's called like then next time it's like a warm start, and it's even faster the startup. And that part we are doing it with ES build, but it will be great if we could replace that with roll down at one point, so it is closer to how that same dependency is going to be like processes by roll up during build. So maybe that in Vite 6 or 7 we could see it. That is one part. There are like two more things. Like one is that like it should be that Vite is extremely stable. Like is one of the philosophy, because now is powering so many projects that a feature in itself is like keeping the like things stable and improving below, like removing as many paper cuts as you can, make things as fast as you can. But like when you release, everybody updates and is happy that like they didn't have to modify a single line of code and they got faster. So that is something that we have been doing for the past like forever that Vite existed, and we are going to continue. And that is something that is for me is exciting in itself, because this is why a project like Vite continues to grow. But at the same time, Vite 6 may be like the biggest release that we have since Vite 2. And this is why we are doing like a massive revision of the API that goes completely the opposite way of what I said now. But we are going to do it in a way that is backward compatible. So there will be like a ton of effort in that. We have a system that is called Vite Ecosystem CI that allow us to test like 25 the main 25 downstream projects. And if we see that like SvelteKit, Nux, and Angular, like everyone is passing their own CIs against Vite, we are pretty confident that the backward compatibility layer is going to be good. We are now working on this new API. It's called like Environment API. And this is like a kind of extension of something that was always there in Vite, that is SSR, like the possibility, the built-in SSR support that Vite had. So how it worked is that with a single Vite dev server, you could process modules for the client, but at the same time, that same Vite dev server with the same plugin pipeline, like if you got a SSR flag in the hook, for example, you say like transform this code for SSR. There was a Boolean flag there, or like resolve this ID for SSR, or load this for SSR, and this allow it, like for example, like SvelteKit, like to load components in a different way for SSR, because it's completely different how the transformation should be. And this was always a feature since Vite 2, but it was only this kind of two environments, like the client environment and then the SSR environment with this little flag. And frameworks are getting kind of even more complex with time, and there is like more environments that are appearing, like, and you have like workerd from Cloudflare, like doing things in the edge. And frameworks, like you may say like, okay, I'm going to do SSR in workerd, for example. That's one thing that you can do. But you can also say I'm going to keep doing SSR node in my main server, but I'm going to have these APIs in the edge. Or like you can mix and match all these environments. And until this point, like Workerd, for example, like they exist like Miniflare that let you like locally test these kind of environments. But the integration with Vite, it worked because they are good hackers. Like they were like just bend Vite around to make things work. Some people are starting to use multiple Vite servers because you start to need, like for example, React server component. You start to need separate module graphs for each of these environments. So they will, instead of having one dev server, they will have like three and coordinate all these themselves. And so here like we are seeing an opportunity for Vite to like offer a little bit like a bigger layer where we can all share. So what we are doing is that there is going to be an environment API where you can define your environments, configure them like in a like comfortable descriptive way, and you could have like let's say like by default, the dev server will start with a client environment, and if you do server-side render at an SSR environment, but then if you want like Workerd or something like that, you can just define that you're going to have a third one or a fourth one, or if you need to do RSC like React Server component, you can have another one there, and you can do this with a single dev server, and this also plays very well with build. A lot of frameworks have been asking us, let us build an application when we call Vite build. And we always say like, no, Vite build is you build a client, or you say like Vite build and you pass another config to build the SSR. Like it's because Vite build until now, it has always been like run roll up with an opinionated config. It's like a single thing that you're building. And we always say like you better create your own CLI and use the JavaScript API, so you have a build API, so you can do whatever you want if you have your own CLI. But a lot of projects see a lot of value in using Vite as their own CLI. For example, you can actually share documentation. Everybody knows what is the port of Vite or things like that. Like it feels natural to use Vite as a CLI. So project like SvelteKit and Remix, they end up hacking again, because if you don't say yes, they are going to go anyways there. And what they did is like in the last hook of the first like client build, there is like a write bundle hook that is the last hook that is called. So there inside, they start another Vite build themselves to build a Vite SSR. So when they call Vite build, both things are like build. But these are completely different processes. They need to communicate using manifest file that they save to the file system. And like if we have the proper environment abstraction during dev, we can use the same during build. So we can say like, okay, we are going to add a Vite build all maybe that's going to iterate over all the environments and is going to build them all with their proper configuration. And you don't have to do that hack anymore. So this is really exciting because it's kind of an API that I feel is going to give a lot of flexibility, and at the same time, while we have been working during the past, like, well, the work started like a year and a half ago, and even before, because like some of the pieces were, for example, for this to work, we needed to move the engine that powers Vitess, that is called Vite Node, inside of Vite. So like this, like Vladimir, like did that work during the last year, and now that was one of the main pieces that we needed to start this work. And we are seeing now that Vite is getting more flexible, and at the same time, a lot of the changes that we do are kind of like, oh, the code is simpler, like because the abstraction really fits well. So yeah, that's one of the things that we are going to try to release this in maybe September or October, maybe for the next VidConf.
Interesting. So I have one follow-up question. Like we talked about the Vite ecosystem, right? I have heard like Vite is mostly used in like a dev server as a dev server or in during development environment. So is there like with all the changes you mentioned, so is there there will be a future where Vite will be used in production mode as well, or is it already used and we are not aware of it?
Uh, I don't know. I don't know if I understand the question because like Vite has like two parts. Like one is the dev server, but the other one is that during build it uses Rollup to build your application for production. So like most projects are using Vite in to do both things. Like I think that Angular maybe is not at this point
That's
because they are like just using ES build, but like if Vite yeah, like I think there is the intention of Angular to be closer to the whole ecosystem and like trying to be able to share more with other frameworks. So I will imagine that as time goes by they will try to integrate better and do things like more like all other projects are doing. But Vite already builds your production bundle like using Rollup.
so it's only Angular which has some compatibility issues, so they decided to just do a dev server right now and then probably move on. Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
it is like Angular did one step, but like there is a long road because also Angular had the problem that they couldn't do like modular, like isolated compilation of a single module because like injection and they needed to like know everything before they're compiled. And but they are moving like
Mhm.
towards a path that will allow a lot better integration with these kind of tools.
Yeah, so I think Sonu has to drop. So thanks again for joining, Sonu, and probably we'll see you again in another episode. Jake,
Yeah,
any
thank
questions?
you, everyone.
Yeah.
See you.
Bye.
Just kind of wrapping up here, what resources should someone that wants to learn more about Vite? I know there's also Vite Test, right? So it's a whole testing framework built around Vite, right? So if someone's wanting to learn more about this, maybe they want to build their own meta framework. Who knows? Where should they go?
So the URL is vitejs.dev, and from there you can actually get to all the other resources. I will advise, like, we have a very active and welcoming community in Discord. So like if you are interested in like building something with Vite, the best thing is actually to join chat.vjs.dev, or like you go to vjs.dev and like put the Discord button and introduce yourself there, like tell us what you're trying to build. And there are like tons of people like that have done similar work, and they can help you even better than people inside the Vite team because they have the experience from building the framework themselves. And one of the things that we are very proud in, like in the Vite ecosystem, is how everyone is helping each other. Like it's really like you can see, I don't know, like Remix, that is one of the last one that like moved to Vite. Like Mark has like sent a tweet that I put in all my talks that it say like, yeah, it has been amazing that like we joined this ecosystem and everybody has actually helped us. Like we don't see a sense of competition, you know, and this is why I think that Vite has grown so much. So like, yeah, if you want to get involved, and if you want to not kind of like get involved in the creating a framework, but you want to get involved in the helping us build Vite, there is always like, I think 400 issues open right now. So like you have a lot to do if you want. There is always that. Like no matter how many we close, there is always 400 issues to deal with. And we have like a contribution channel there, and also introduce yourself. Like we love to work with people. And if you don't know where to start, like we always say, like try not to get frustrated to like trying to send a PR, you know, like this is why people fail sometimes to get involved, because they think that they have to, I don't know, like refactor half the code to get started. And instead of that, get in the Discord of the projects, try to help other users, help with triage, like do this kind of task, and you will get a feeling of the community. You will learn a lot about the tool by helping others, and then naturally the possibilities for more collaboration will appear.
Makes perfect sense.
Before we wrap up, before we wrap up, I have two questions which can be a little bit like can be hot take. Okay, so first thing, do you think that there will be a future where all the build tools will be written in Rust?
All the sorry.
All the build tools will be written in Rust. Do you think there is a future that everyone will be like, okay, I'm just going to use Rust now?
It's very interesting. Like for a long time, Vite was pushing the idea that we should stay in JavaScript. Like before this move to start like working roll down, like we were really on that side, and there is a lot of advantages of staying in JavaScript because collaboration is so much easier. Like you have like so much bigger pool of people. But Vite is also Vite because we use it like not native toolings, like because like we needed ES build to build Vite, and I think that for a project like Vite, it will always stay in JS, but more and more parts where it makes sense, it will be ported to Rust. But let's say like the glue code, it it's okay to be in JS because that is like not where you spend most of your time, you know. There should be for this kind of like JS plus Rust or any native, like a very good plugin story and like how to actually communicate between Rust and JavaScript. But luckily, that is getting better every day. Like if you see project like Nappy RS, that is what Brooklyn is working on and what is powering like the communication between Rust and JavaScript for project like Roll Down. They are doing amazing stuff, and this will just keep getting better. So I don't see a future where like everything is in Rust. I see a future where what makes sense to be in Rust is in Rust. Like where you need the speed, okay, that is awesome. But a lot of things will, to me, stay in JavaScript. It's really fast JavaScript, eh? Like the engines are incredible.
It's actually surprising how fast it actually is in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And my next question is, maybe if you don't want to answer, that's absolutely fine. What Webpack did wrong? I mean, where it went wrong? Everyone was using Webpack, and then suddenly people are okay. I'm writing new code to Webpack, or we are moving away from Webpack. Why that?
I don't think that Webpack did something wrong. It's like Webpack is like at this point in time, even after like it's already declining a little bit in usage, but it is double the downloads we said of Vite. So like there is tons of people using it, and they did a lot of things right to reach that place, and they develop it like a huge and massive ecosystem. And the problem is that when you have that huge ecosystem, you can see like talks from the maintainers that they also talk about this idea of how like once you need to move, like do you go in the incremental route or do you go in the rewrite route? So like for example, like one of the main maintainers of Webpack, that there are many, but like one of the main ones went to work in Vercel doing TurboPack, and he chose it the rewrite route, let's say. But Webpack is still like incrementally, let's say, improving. But at this point, like Vite was able, like as we said before, to start from like the shoulders of giants, you know, and this idea of like we know what are the patterns that are common. We can build like a simple tool and that really click it with a lot of people. So what I would say is that these projects did a lot of things right. Like not that it is very hard to maintain a project for like 20 years. I don't know, like if you can think of many projects that you look back and you say like, yes, I'm using the same project for the like past 20 years, you know? So like a project have like a curve, that like adoption curve. And at one point, probably there will be something like a lot better than Vite that we will say like, okay, hat off, that is amazing. Like maybe I go to help you.
Yeah, that's how it works. That's how innovation works, right?
Yeah.
Take anything from you.
Awesome. Well, anything else you want to promote before we wrap up here? Anything you're working on, releasing soon, Vite
Yeah,
or not?
we talk it a lot about I am working a lot in the environment API now. I was like pushing commits before joining. So like yeah, if you want to get involved with that in particular, is going to be very interesting because it's like one of the biggest changes. So there will be again a lot of opportunities to get involved because we just like run ecosystem CI and like 2/3 of the projects are broken. So like we need to fix them. And we are back into this kind of like yeah, it's going to be good. We are not going to release until we have a green of like wall, but like there will be a lot of opportunity to collaborate. So yeah, like if you are interested, and also if you never tried it before, like and you're listening to this, like something that also plays well with both Vite and StackGrids, like go in your browser to vite.new, and this will like open StackGrids with a Vite starter. Or if you want any framework, like go to vite.new/vue or vite.new/react. And actually, like this is something that Evan used to tell a lot when like Vite started. That is like you have to experience it to understand what Vite is. So like if you never use it, like go there, Vite.new, and actually change something and see it in real time, the hot model reload, change the CSS, and you yeah, you will see what is Vite.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks again. Yes, thanks Jay for joining us today. And uh, it was great discussion about wheat. Of course, I like know very little about the wheat. I'm not sure like how much you have done. What you have done, Jay, in wheat. Yeah.
Not like a ton amount, not a ton. So this is really enlightening. It was awesome meeting you. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the invite, and yeah, whenever you want, we can have another one. Maybe like yes, you should invite Anthony for talking about Vitest, and yeah, there is like so much to talk. And if you are more from the Angular world, like you will use Vite a lot more in the future.
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. We already do for the dev server, so I'm looking forward to more Vite goodness.
I think it will be really solid when like most enterprises start adopting it because at enterprises migration is always hard, and especially a lot of enterprises I know. I think Jay also may know this, that they have that handwritten webpack still existing somewhere. So I think that migration is hard, but hope like Angular can make this migration very smooth. If not Angular, maybe NX can fill that gap because they have been doing it for React ecosystem. Like they wrote migration from Webpack to Vite. So I think that feature would be great for everyone. Of course, we don't have to drink a lot of coffees. Hope so.
I'm still going to be drinking just as much coffee. I'll just be doing it while I'm coding instead of while I'm waiting for my code to compile.
So thanks again, Matthias and Jay. And we'll be back. So we'll be back again with next episode. And next episode is going to be about design systems. I mean, it's the backend thing. I mean, I hope. So, sorry, it's not called design system. It's called system design. Uh, I always get confused. Like I have worked on backend, front end, now mostly front end. So yeah, we are going to talk about system design with Arpit. He is one of the content creator. He keeps writing a lot about databases and system design. So we will see you next episode. And meanwhile, enjoy the episodes which we have already published. And thank you. See you. Bye bye.
See you all. Thanks a lot.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.